Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the Under Center podcast. I am your host for this evening, Dara Marr. For this first part, at least, I am delighted to be joined by Sam Farley. Sam, it's our first chance to actually have you on the show for the start of the new season. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been really good. Thanks. Just enjoying the new season. Great to have football back. All those carefully laid plans of fantasy football all gone out the window. My team's awful. I'm a bit depressed by it all, but you wouldn't change it. It's great to have football back. It's been so much fun.
I'm still, thankfully now, I'm still doing okay in leagues. I have still either a 500 or a winning record, so I'm still invested for the time being. But give it a couple of weeks, and I could be where you're at for sure.
Yeah, in a couple of them, my teams aren't actually that bad, and I'm at 500. But when I just look at the roster, I just know it's going to be a long season. There's already people getting injured. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, no, I got hit by the Elijah Mitchell injury, and then this week the Trey Lance injury. So I've been hurt by the 49ers twice already, and I almost got stung by the Gabe Davis injury. On Monday, they waited until an hour before kickoff to say that he wasn't going to play. Thankfully, I had Adam Thielen on the bench, so I could just do a quick swap, which saved it. But yeah, injuries are starting to become an issue.
And it's only week 2. Well, week 3 now, I guess. But wow, I mean, the Trey Lance one, devastating.
Yeah,
Genuinely devastating.
Yeah, and we'll speak about Lance, and we'll speak a bit more about the 49ers in a little bit. But before we proceed with the show, I should mention as well that this show tonight is brought to you in partnership with Locker. Locker is a new sports app that centralizes premium sport content and puts the power in the hands of the fans to personalize their world of sport, including a range of premium NFL sources that can be tailored to your fan experience. Download the app for free in the Irish or UK iOS and Play Store today. But let's get into a bit of the NFL chat, Salmon. I've seen a lot of NFL shows this week talk about their most disappointing team so far in the season. And one team that's on a lot of people's lists is the Indianapolis Colts. We talked on the show ourselves earlier on in the week. And I want to ask the question: is the Frank Reich and Chris Ballard sort of strategy of getting these veteran quarterbacks in for a year or two to fill the gap instead of drafting a quarterback, is it finally catching up with them?
Maybe. I think. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming for the Colts. They've been absolutely abject in kind of every possible way, and that's the one thing that kind of makes me think maybe it isn't just about the quarterbacking issue. Is defensively they weren't particularly good. They're very unlucky with the injuries to Pittman and Pierce this past week. I think that was pretty disappointing for them. This sort of strange, they did this last year, this almost effort to try and turn themselves into a slightly more balanced team, pass a bit more, when ultimately you've got Jonathan Taylor. Just give the guy the rock and let him run. And when they give him the ball, things happen, but they do seem to try to be a bit more balanced, which, look, I understand, but you're sat on you've not won a game yet, you drawn one, you lost one. I don't think you can do that anymore. And I mean, that whole division I don't think anybody would have predicted after 2 games it would be looking how it is. But for me, the Colts, hugely disappointing, but we are only 2 games in. We've seen every year, there's always teams that you think are down and out after a week or 2, and they always turn up. And there's too much talent at the core of this team for that not to happen, I think. Matt Ryan, I thought full cards on the table. The Colts are my kind of outside pick to win the Super Bowl, aside from the favourites. I thought Matt Ryan had a real chance of winning a couple of awards this season as well. And I still think there's a chance of that. Maybe this is teething problems, a new offense, a new team. But I don't know. I think the wider issues need to be addressed, the defense in particular, because we've seen in the past couple of years it's been a really good defense, and it doesn't really look at it at the moment. They've given up, let me just check, 44 points in 2 weeks to 2 teams that aren't really highly rated.
No, definitely not. And They are lucky in that sense, like you mentioned. The division is being led by the Jaguars, who are 1-1. They are still only half a game back, which I guess, if you want to look at it with the glass half full sort of way. But there is this weird thing with the Jaguars and the Colts when the Colts travel to the Jaguars, because I came across this stat there just this afternoon as well, that I think it's been 8 years since the Colts have actually won a game in Jacksonville. So there's definitely something in the water down there that is causing them to not be able to perform when they travel to take on the Jaguars.
Yes, it does seem like a weird hoodoo. And I almost think these things have become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It obviously happened last year. It cost Carson Wentz his time in Indianapolis, really. It cost them a playoff berth. And even leading up to this game, I think everybody thought the Colts would win, but there was still discussion like, oh, they don't really do it there. Is this going to be an issue? And I think players do hear this stuff. They do see this stuff in the media. And I think that might be an issue. But I also think there's a chance that, I mean, the Colts, I'm still a bit unsure on what they are. The Titans, I think potentially, I know they've not had the easiest sort of start in terms of schedule. I think potentially they're not the team they've been the past couple of years. Whereas the Texans and Jags, I mean, by no means am I telling you they're good teams, but they were at a point where they couldn't really be much worse. And they do seem to be improving. I think the Texans, there's actually a lot to like about them. I mean, they're not going to win a huge amount of games, but Davis Mills, I think, a solid game manager. Nico Collins, good sort of second receiver. Damian Pierce, I think, could be quite a promising running back. Brandon Cook's obviously a good player. And their defense is sneaky good. So I think we need to give the Colts and the rest of the division really time, have a little shake up. Maybe 5-6 games in, I think we can draw some conclusions. And it might just be that the Jags and the Texans aren't quite as bad as we think they are because of previous seasons, and maybe these results aren't as catastrophic as they first appear.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned him earlier on at the start there, and that's Trey Lance. Of course, we did see the terrible injury he got while playing against the Seahawks, which sort of paved the way for Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, to make his comeback into the team. And after all the sort of off-season turmoil of putting him up on the trade block, to not being able to train with the team, to nobody wanting him, to people to people thinking that he's going to get released, to him getting his new contract, and to now to see him starting now for the rest of the season, it looks like. Do you think that the 49ers have sort of improved now their Super Bowl chances with starting Jimmy G?
That is a brilliant question. In a vacuum, I think Trey Lance has the potential to be better and would have improved this team more. I think just the ability to add a deep threat to what is already a fantastic ground game made the 49ers, for me, a real potential sort of Super Bowl winning team. And I know that first week against the Bears was bad, but look, it's his first start of the season. He obviously only got a couple of starts last year. It was in a monsoon. I think if there's ever a game, you just say, look, give him a mulligan. Let's judge him on the rest of the games going forward. I think it's that. And what he gave that offense, or had the potential to give that offense, I think really helped them transcend into a brilliant team, a better team. With Jimmy Garoppolo, I do think we've seen the extent of what the 49ers can be with Jimmy Garoppolo already, and it wasn't quite good enough. And I don't see what they've done that is going to put that team over the top. Now, that being said, there's one thing in football, in sport, that we can't sort of actually put numbers on, and that is how an important injury, an important story, a narrative can sort of galvanize a team. And I think there is a chance, if the 49ers kind of play this right, the team could really kind of come together, get behind Garoppolo, and just push this team forward. And I mean, I think they're in a good position because just in the division, the Seahawks won't be a threat. The Rams don't look as good as last year. I think their O-line looks atrocious. The Cardinals, how many years of Cliff Kingsbury now? And I still don't know if he's any good. I can't work it out. So I think they had a very good opportunity, even without Trey Lance, to win that division. And once you're into the playoffs, anything goes. And Look, I think they have as good a chance as any, but I still think there are other teams that are just more well-rounded and kind of more balanced that will be able to do more than the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were still last season with Jimmy Garoppolo and his bum shoulder, one game away from the Super Bowl. With his shoulder surgery in the offseason now, this seems to have, fixed any issues. And improvements that they've made in the team as well. I mentioned it when we did an NFC West preview a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned that the only thing that could stop the 49ers from challenging that division and possibly going far in the playoffs is injuries. And we've seen it now at the start of the season already that they have suffered significant injuries. They seem to have this voodoo where I remember a couple of years ago, it was the likes of Nick Bosa that went down in like week 2, a couple of players. And now this time they lost Elijah Mitchell in the first week. Now he should be back later on in the season, but then also Trey Lance as well. And that's why I sort of agree with you, and I have them as a dark horse to possibly, go far this year.
Yeah, I had them as a dark horse, and to be honest, I still do, because I think they are very fortunate that they're in a conference with. I mean, in that conference, there's nobody in that conference I think is going to win the Super Bowl. But I mean, you've got the Bucks, could be okay. Packers, you can never rule them out. Vikings, you just don't know. Ultimately, there's going to be a couple of teams. I mean, one team that gets to the conference game isn't going to be a brilliant team. And once you reach that point, you only need to win 2 games and you've won the Super Bowl. So I think that plays to the 49ers' hands. They've been experienced. They've kind of got to these big games in recent years. That does bode well. So ultimately, I still think they have a hell of a chance, but not quite enough for me to think they've got enough to kind of go over the top and exceed what they did last year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a quarterback that is used to the NFC West and will actually be coming up against the NFC West this week, and that's Russell Wilson. He sort of had a mixed home debut for the Broncos this past weekend, which included him only trying for the 1 touchdown, getting booed by his home fans, and then the home fans ironically counting down the game clock due to their time issues that they were having. It was some spectacle there in Mile High this week, and kind of, I had a bit of a rant about it as well. So it was a bit of like a, spoiled child attitude, it seemed to be from the Broncos fans who, look, I'm sure you would have seen it in your own Twitter timeline as well. They were already crowning themselves Super Bowl champions after the trade, and and now sort of reality is starting to hit them.
Yeah, I am a bit. I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Broncos, because I thought maybe not Super Bowl champs, but I thought this is a team that could go far. They've got a good, not brilliant, but a good defense. They've got Sutton and Judy. I think Sutton is a brilliant receiver. Judy has all the tools to be a top receiver. I think Javonte Williams is one of the most exciting players in the league. I really do. So I was just thinking, and they got a good offensive line, and I was thinking this is a team that could really kind of take that leap. And it just hasn't happened. And I mean, losing to that Seahawks team is bad. And the result at the weekend, I know they kind of got away with one, but it's bad. And I think what's more worrying is for Nathaniel Hackett, he's basically, it's 2 games in, and he's lost the respect of everybody in that locker room, I'd imagine. He has 100% lost the respect of the fans. And I don't think I've ever seen, maybe in any sport, I don't think I've ever seen a game 2 seasons into a new season with a new coaching staff that seems that toxic already, which I don't know how you can get back from that. It's only going one way, and Nathaniel Hackett won't be doing a second year there. I'm pretty certain of that already. But I mean, they still have the players to actually be good. So again, like I said earlier, I don't want to count somebody out after 2 weeks, but I mean, it really isn't looking good. And I mean, they're in a tough division as well. So it's not a good time if you're a Broncos fan, I think.
No, not at all. And It was, and it was a fear that I had heading into the season with Russ, and me being a Seahawks fan, I know all about it. With Russ, he is quite a decisive character, a divisive, sorry, character, I should say, at times, and with such a rookie head coach coming into this, that and all the vibes he was giving out through the offseason, say this is Russell's offense, we're going to cater around Russ. He's given him a lot of power. I think maybe he's trying to take a little bit back, which, with that choice to go for the field goal from 63 yards, wasn't it, against Seattle? And then, I think there was an occasion, it was the same 4th and 2. I think they were on the 43-yard line. It would have been a 53-yard field goal. He decides not to do it. Then they have a delay of game penalty. It goes back, and then they ended up punting, even though they were still at this range that he missed from on Monday. It seems as though, he's a bit of a deer caught in the headlights at the moment. And I tend to agree with you there, Sam, that I'd be surprised if he makes it into a second year. And it'll be interesting to see how much influence Russ will have in the choice of a next head coach, because I'm sure he would not want someone that would be as authoritative as Pete Carroll was. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get out of Seattle too. So I'm sure he would want someone that, I'm not going to say control is the thing, but someone that will let him do what he wants to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because look, you got someone like Aaron Rodgers as your QB. He's so good, or Mahomes potentially, any of these top guys, top 5 guys. I think if you're a GM, you give them a pretty good say in who's going to be the head coach. With Russ, he was very good at times in Seattle. He's definitely in the top half of quarterbacks in the NFL, but I don't think he's quite at that truly elite table. And I think you've got to question how much you'd want him to be inputting in on the future of your franchise. So I think that's a really interesting point. And he's just an odd character, isn't he? I mean, you must know that better than most, but I've never seen someone who can say so many, you're a quarterback in the NFL and you're saying stuff like, let Russ cook, ride Broncos, all this stuff. Somehow that should be so cool, but he comes across like a substitute teacher. It's the most weird energy I've ever seen a top level professional athlete have. But I think the Broncos will improve. They can't be that bad forever. But it is just a matter of, Hackett is on the hot seat already.
Yeah, for sure. Before we look ahead to the Thursday Night Football, just one more storyline from last weekend I want to get your opinion on, and that was the bonkers game that was in Baltimore between the Ravens and the Dolphins, with Tua showing up with 6 touchdowns, Lamar getting 4 of his own and a rushing touchdown. First, with the Miami side of things, with Tua, is this the Tua coming out party? Is this what we're going to see now for the rest of the season, especially with Hill and Waddle there with for him to target? And then on the Baltimore side, with Lamar again showing how good and dangerous he can be both in the air and on his feet, showing that maybe the Ravens, trying to not say give him a cheap deal, but maybe not pulling all the stops out for him, maybe something they could regret.
Yeah, I think. Well, let's start with the Dolphins. Tua for me was the guy coming into this season, the QB that had the most to prove. I think he's been incredibly hard done by at times this year. Sorry, not this year. This sort of professional career he's had thus far. I think the Dolphins sort of courting Tom Brady was a bit below the belt. I think it's been clear at times he's not had full trust from everybody involved in the team. But this year they've got a new coach. It finally felt like everything was sorted. They've gone and got him Tyreek Hill to go alongside Waddle, 2 incredible playmakers. If he didn't do it this year, I think it's safe to say he'd be a bust. I think that would be a fair enough assumption to say, at least in terms of what they paid for him. But he looks far from that. I think we always knew the accuracy was there. There were doubts about the arm strength. I think he's shown that some of those doubts are erroneous. His arm isn't that weak. But ultimately, even if he doesn't have, a cannon for an arm, he's not Josh Allen. If you have that much accuracy and you've got two guys who are so good after the catch in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it doesn't matter. And those two, that might be, look, I think there's probably better receiving duos in the NFL, but is there a receiving duo in the NFL that has that much speed and agility? I'm not sure. And I think they're just going to be so fun to watch, the Dolphins, all year, because they're not out of it. And the defense is like reasonably good as well, which is nice. And then talk about the QB on the other sideline, Lamar Jackson. He's my favorite QB in the league. I love watching him play. And with the whole contract thing, I get it from both sides of the defense, because if you're Lamar Jackson, you see Deshaun Watson, what he's done to then earn a contract like that it's pretty galling if you're not getting that from your own team, especially when you've won an MVP award, you've been absolutely fantastic the whole way through your career with the team. But at the same time, if I'm the Ravens, we all know about how he uses his feet. And that is what makes Lamar, I think that's what transcends him from being a very, very good quarterback to being a top 5 guy. But ultimately, that's also, we've seen it throughout the past years. That is also what gets people injured. And would you want to fully guarantee somebody who is taking chances like that? I personally wouldn't. But I think it's got to the point now, you have to do it. You absolutely just have to gamble and put your money on it, because I think he's showing more and more with each and every week. His arm is very, very good. And when he first sort of started playing for the Falcons, started playing for the Ravens, there was a lot of question marks about, is this running back with a mediocre arm? And it's got progressively better. He's accurate. I mean, was it Bateman had a great long ball for this past week? The guy can throw a rock as well. Like I think he's got it all, and I think that the Ravens have to pay up now. But I mean, these are two guys. I think we're going to see both of them in the playoffs, and we might see them face each other again at some point.
Big call. Getting both of them in the playoffs for sure. And putting your stall out early, Sam. I like that now. I like that. Let's actually have a look ahead now to Thursday night's game. Of course, the Steelers at the Browns. These sort of NFC North matchups are always, hard hitting, low scoring affairs, and especially with the QBs on show as well, it kind of lends to the fact that it's going to continue that way. The line currently is 38.5 at the time we're recording this. Now, would you be looking at an under and over for that game?
I'd go over. I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I'd say the Browns will cover. I think their defense is good, and I worry so much about that Steelers offense. I think the line's not very good, and the Browns, I think Jadeveon Clowney's out. I think that's the case, but even without him, I think they've still got enough kind of ability on the outside to cause real problems. But I mean, it's a good game. I mean, the Browns Steelers, it's always a game you go and watch, but it's nice. I think this is the first Thursday night football of the year that hasn't been I absolutely must stay awake and struggle through work on Friday. So it's going to be a nice one. I don't feel the pressure to stay awake. I'll just watch it on Friday and enjoy it again. But I think it's going to be an exciting game.
It should be interesting. And it looks as though it's going to come down to which rushing attack is the better. And, a lot has been expected of Naji Harris this year. He's sort of failed to deliver so far. His rushing stats have not been great. You're looking at the other side of the ball, and you're looking at, who was it? Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb going in just for the 3 touchdowns, last weekend against the Jets. I'm sure Kareem Hunt would be thinking, share that a little bit, please, with me. So I'm guessing in terms of, possible touchdown scores, I guess you'd be looking at those 3 thinking that they would be sort of high on your list of possible touchdown scores for this Thursday.
I think so. So I kind of had a little look at the markets earlier, and I was kind of deciding if I had to do a couple of bets, where would I go? Nick Chubb touchdown, I think, is 10 to 11 I just don't see a world in which that doesn't happen. I think he's so good. He's so integral to their play. And I think he's going to just run through that team. So I think that's one I'd definitely go for. Now, you mentioned Naji Harris. I'm a bit down on Naji Harris. I think he did well last year through sheer volume. I don't think he's a particularly elusive back. I don't think he's a particularly great back. I think they probably drafted him a bit too high. But, he's got the volume there. But the numbers this year are just not good enough for me. So I'm expecting him. I don't think he'll get in the end zone. I'd probably back his under on rushing yards, which I think is 55. I'm not expecting a big game from him. But there's one guy outside of those guys, a receiving option I really like for this game, both in beating his receiving yards and in getting a touchdown as well. And that is Pat Frymouth of the Steelers. I mean, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, we know rubbish QBs love a tight end. That's just one of the rules of football. And I think Mitch Trubisky isn't long for the starter's job in Pittsburgh. I think he'll look to kind of get it off to Frymouth as much as possible. But also, I can quickly double check here the name, who it was. So in the Browns' last couple of games, they've been pretty awful against tight ends. Against the Jets, it was, what's his name? Tyler Conklin. Yeah, had a good game. The game before that against the Panthers, it was Ian Thomas. Neither of these guys are particularly elite tight ends, and they had a really good game against the Browns. And I think that's one way you can attack them, and just quick passes off to the tight end. And I think we're going to see a bit of that on Thursday Night Football. And I think Pat Frymouth could be the guy to be the beneficiary.
Okay. So looking at it then, we're looking at an over 38. You're thinking the Browns to cover. Maybe a Pat Frymouth anytime touchdown and Nick Chubb anytime touchdown. I think that's a nice bet builder. I think you can get some decent odds on that. Yeah, I think so. That's
going to be a good price.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to put that on now straight after we're done recording and see how much we can get. I'll share the profits with you. Don't worry. Listen, Sam, it's always great to speak to you. Thanks so much for taking the time. For anyone that's interested in following you and getting possible betting tips as well for the weekend, where can they follow?
So you can find me on Twitter at Farley Writes. I'm doing a number of things for Covers and Action Network and Dimers at the moment. And just find me on Twitter and you'll see everything there.
Excellent stuff. And Sam, until the next time we speak, hopefully you enjoy the football at the weekend and a few weeks. I've actually never asked before. So who is your team in the NFL?
I'm a Jags fan, unfortunately.
Right. Oh, well, look, hey, I've got it. Well, then I should mention then the Jags won me a bit of money last week, so I'm very happy about that. I had a nice double with them and the Jets to win. Just go straight for the money line. I felt there was a surprise coming, and there was. So I was very happy.
What was that?
I put 5 down and I got 38 back.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah,
that's a nice bet.
Yeah. So it was a nice little double there. We won't talk about the rest of them I put on that weekend. But we'll just mention that. Always just mention the winners. But listen, like I said, Sam, thanks again so much for the time, and we'll speak again soon. No doubt. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our preview for the Thursday night football game. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns.
You know why Madden's so different this year? Field sense. It changes everything. So I can finally throw the rock.
Hey, check it. Okay, I feel unstoppable. Losing's impossible.
Put the ball where only I can catch it.
Thing they know.
Yo, Hit Boy, what you think?
I could make the biggest hit in the game, man.
You ain't lying, bro. We live?
Oh, we live.
We made it till you got dollars. Go out and shop for you.
Taylor?
Wait,
We're live?
Wait, what? Slice up the defense with Field Sense.
You can do that too.
We need some big plays, big hits right now.
Say less.
Game on the
Woo, now that's a hit.
time we do the
Touche.
So, what can you change with Field Sense?
down. I don't judge, I sing. You staying down for the come up till I reign supreme.
Everything.
Let's get it. Yeah. Hit boy. We got another one. Ha. Man, y'all boys ain't ready for this, man.
Hello and you're welcome to the second part of the Under Center podcast. We are continuing looking ahead to Thursday night football. Of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to take on the Cleveland Browns in an AFC North matchup. To look at the Steelers side of things of this game, we are delighted to be joined from the Steel City Insider. It is Jim Wexell. Jim, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, we are delighted to speak to you for sure. And we are really looking forward to this game tonight as well. I don't know if you got to see last Thursday night's game, but what have you made of the sort of Amazon now presentation that we're getting?
I haven't seen it. No, I do have Prime, so I am ready with a subscription if needed, but I can't comment on it. I don't know. You tell me.
It's been pretty good. Now, over this side of the water, we kind of really wouldn't get it as in-depth as you would. Okay. Obviously, we sort of stick to the Game Pass, and that's how we sort of get our NFL content in. So we don't get as many of the, game blackouts as you would if you had the Game Pass over in America due to, TV rights. But from what I've seen I on the short clips on Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that, it seems to be going down well with people. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes now on Thursday. But we're not here to talk about Amazon. We're here to talk about the Steelers. And, it's been quite an interesting start to the season for the team. They had that crazy overtime win in Cincinnati against the Bengals on week 1. And then this past Sunday, quite a disappointing 17-14 loss against the Patriots. And sort of as a whole so far in these first 2 weeks, I know it's kind of tough to, put a proper judgment on it, but how have you felt the team has been?
Well, they're one play away from being 2-0, one play away from being 0-2. It's the offense, and we knew it would be. The new quarterback, new offensive line, the running backs either injured, too heavy, overtrained, or doesn't trust his new offensive line. The offensive coordinator isn't putting all the new pieces together yet. And there's a lot of blame flying around the Steel City, as you put it. Everybody's trying to find the villain here because the offense can't move the ball consistently. And they have a lot of high-paid, I guess they're not high-paid yet, but they're highly drafted offensive skill players. And, and the quarterback is in a really no-win situation. We could talk about that too.
Well, yeah, and let's have a chat about the offense. And like you said, they rightly have sort of struggled in these first 2 weeks. And it got to a point in the game on Sunday where you could hear the crowd, even on the TV broadcast, shouting for Kenny and hoping to get, rookie Kenny Pickett in a quarterback instead of Mitch Trubisky. You wrote an article actually as well this week, looking at sort of the offense and who's seems to be to blame, like you're saying, looking for the villain. Where do you come down on the offense, and who would you think is at fault for the struggles at the moment?
The quarterback hasn't played well, but he's new, and not that I expect him to play all that much better. He's kind of been who he is. He doesn't make many mistakes, but he's also not lighting it up the way Kenny Pickett can. If the coach was sure he wouldn't make rookie mistakes. So the coach is waiting until the rookie, his first round pick, who he loves, they all love, they want to get the first round pick in. A coach isn't going to throw a rookie quarterback in until he's ready. And only the coach knows what Kenny Pickett knows and doesn't know, and how prepared he fully is. The preseason, he looked great, but everything looked rather simple for him. And so I have a feeling he's not there yet. And also the coach doesn't want to make the move too soon. Now, and in Trubisky's behalf, he was never going to have a shot here as far as winning the fans over. He's replacing a legend. Probably it's a tough town on quarterbacks. He's replacing the only guy who's never booed by this town. And he's a legend, Ben Roethlisberger. And he's preceding a local college star out of the University of Pittsburgh in the first round draft pick, who played great in the preseason. Mitch Trubisky has no chance to win these fans over. None. He's in the toughest situation any quarterback I've ever seen, following a legend and preceding a local college star number 1 pick.
Yeah.
So, but Mitch does have the temperament. He does have the, he understands his situation. He's not going to let it get to him. He's going to keep working, and the coach understands that too. And I was down there today, and all the receivers came out of a meeting at one time, and they were all similar in that they all talked about teamwork, wanting to pull together and not harass the quarterback about what plays to call. Throw me the ball. They're all it seemed like they all just got reamed out. And as Mitch said after the game, we've all got to stay on the same page, and we've got to buy in to the offensive coordinator's plan. And that's the other villain, the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and Coach Canada came into a lot of criticism even last year with Roethlisberger's last year too. How with your ears sort of to the ground down there, is there sort of any rumblings at all that a change could be made if the offensive struggles continue, especially on the coaching side?
Well, the coaching side won't change. That won't change until the offseason. They're not going to fire a coach in the middle of the year. Now, the quarterback change is possible, but unlikely. Knowing Mike Tomlin, he's going to stick with this guy for a while. But the offensive coordinator, there are rumblings that his plans in the passing game are not professional level. That he's being called a college coach. He's trying to do different things with the running game. The motion and the sweeps, the jet sweeps, at times work, but also they don't really move people out of the box. And that's the problem. The front wall is just too congested. And they need a deep passing game to back people off. They need passes over the middle. And that's been the criticism, deep and not over the middle. Although both have occurred to varying degrees of success. The one interception Trubisky has thrown this year was over the middle, and the linebacker got lucky, dropped into coverage, and tipped it up. So they have a point not challenging the middle at times with the new offense. But I think both the quarterback and the coordinator are getting equal blame. One because he's in front of the rookie, and the other because his passing game, his approach lacks professional sophistication.
Mm-hmm. He has, though, had some success, Trubisky, especially with the tight end Pat Freiermuth. And especially you like that if he's struggling to throw it down the middle. He has that outlet there in Freiermuth, who's played well the start of this year. And could we see sort of more of that now on Thursday night, where he will target the tight end more maybe than the wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, the touchdown last week was over the middle to Freiermuth. So there has been some success in that regard. And Freiermuth is tough, sure-handed. He's all of the he's got it all. Yeah, we'd like to see more. And Cleveland doesn't have the free safety that both Cincinnati and New England had exceptional safeties, free safeties. Cleveland, not so much. So maybe they won't be as afraid to challenge the middle. They didn't want to mess with McCourty. He leads all NFL players with in interceptions, all active players. He's got 31 interceptions, and they didn't want to challenge him. But this week, maybe you're right. Maybe that's the way to go. Now is the time to challenge the middle.
Staying with the offense, and you mentioned there with the running back, of course, Naji Harris, who has sort of, failed at the moment to live up to the numbers that a lot of people have hyped him for. And what are you putting that down to? Is it, I think you mentioned there that he was maybe a little heavy during camp, or is it maybe this offensive line struggles that are not helping? Or like you mentioned, I think you said earlier that he may not trust the offensive line to give him the gaps that he needs.
Well, there have been plays where it's been illustrated that he doesn't trust the line, but the line is blocking well. He should trust them more. So is that a factor? I don't know. The being too heavy, I think. It's not from sloth. He's not a sports writer. It's from working too hard. I believe he's added too much weight. This is just a theory, only because either that or his foot's still hurting him from the training camp. But he just looks so sluggish. His legs look dead. He doesn't look like the guy he was last year. And, Mike Tomlin gets these running backs to lose weight all the time. Le'Veon Bell lost a lot of weight and became outstanding. Naji has added, he's 244, all muscle, but maybe he overtrained. And I believe in overtraining. I believe you have to he's a workaholic. They can't get him off the field. I think maybe he needs to get off the field. Get off your feet. Go rest your body. Take care of your body in a different way by resting it. Let your workouts heal. Don't work out so long. He was talking in the off season. I forget what player it was. We had just talked to Naji, and he talked about 5-hour lifting sessions, and we were talking to another player about, hey, you ever work out? And the guy says, I tell you, I have no need to work out for 5 hours. And I've always believed that too. And I'm just a reporter, so of course I believe that. But I just wonder if he is overtrained. Troy Polamalu used to, he thought one year he overtrained, and he thought it cost him. He came in bigger, more muscular, thought he was ready for a great season, but his whole body was flat. He was just flat.
Yeah. Looking then on the other side of the ball ahead of this game and on defense, and the big miss is obviously TJ Watt. Sort of his presence was missed even going back to Sunday, I think, because looking at even the box score and sort of looking at the game itself as well, Mac Jones wasn't sacked at all in the game. I think there was only 3 QB hits in the game too, and that's something that they're going to have to sort of improve in these next couple of weeks until he's fit to come back.
Pass rushes are always helped by the home crowd, and these were the meekest pass rush statistics since last year at this time against the Bengals. And oh, by the way, it's TJ Watt missed that game too. They missed him. They're 0-5 without him. It's obvious that one great pass rusher can make other pass rushers look better because the attention is where's TJ. And it makes quarterbacks nervous. They hold the ball for a while back there, and it's all of a sudden, where's TJ? I don't know. Is he going to come up from behind? And things get rushed and panic. There was no panic of Mac Jones last week, and he's the kind of guy that you can beat up. And now it was a better offensive line in New England because you see Cincinnati gave up that kind of pass rush again this week, so their offensive line is hideous. But TJ's most certainly missed. Yeah.
And staying with the defensive line as well, because going even back to last season, the Steelers playing against the run have struggled, and you're coming up against a Cleveland Browns attack of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. How important is even someone like their new linebacker Miles Jack? How important is he going to be in this game to sort of stop the sort of dual-headed attack?
I think he's huge, and they're going to need it. Cleveland was probably had the worst rushing attack against the Steelers last year. Everybody beat up on the Steelers except the Browns, and they should have. And Nick Chubb's a great back. I think they tried to get too smart, Cleveland, and do the opposite of what the Steelers expected. And we saw all year it didn't matter. If the Steelers knew you were running and you ran, you still ran. So this is going to be a challenge. But you're right. Miles Jack is the guy. Also, Ogunjobi played for Cleveland for many years. He's in the middle of the defense. Tyson Alualu's back. If they play a lot of that 3 defensive tackle 4-man front that they played last week, only 1 outside linebacker to compensate for TJ's loss, that will help against the run. They'll probably use some of that, but it didn't generate much of a pass rush. So I'm not sure how that's going to go down, but those are the options. Yes, I believe they have a chance to stop the run. I didn't believe they did last year. The only reason they did stop the run is because Cleveland stopped it for them.
Could we see then the likes of Mika Fitzpatrick then move up closer to the box in this game, and rather than playing in the backfield?
Well, when they bring when DeMonte Casey's healthy, he's on IR for 4 weeks or so. He can handle that ball hawking position. I notice when Minka moves up, and because he's a linebacker, he can play anywhere, right? You like him up close because he's a threat to blitz even, and he can ball hawk the flats. He can stop the run, but he's such a great ball hawk in the middle of the field and affects quarterbacks back there. I know New England, as the Steelers avoided McCourty, Mac Jones tried to avoid Minka as best as he could. And when Minka crept up in the box and they put different safety back there, Edmonds, they went deep. They went after him. I think they just missed getting a deep ball. Somebody was open. I think Mac Jones missed the guy. So you could see when they see Minka come down, they look deep. So that's even a problem until Casey gets back.
Right. So then I guess this stopped. And but with Jacoby Brissett, and obviously no disrespect to him, but like his ability, but I guess in the possible inaccuracies of his throwing, and could maybe give the Steelers the opportunity to send Fitzpatrick if he can get to him quick enough to cause him to throw some errant balls. But you still have those threats with Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper as well, who had his first good day for the Browns at the weekend. So I think it's a tough thing to do, and maybe like you mentioned, if you maybe switch it around and maybe send Terrell Edmonds up to the box, maybe just to nullify that running attack.
Sure, that's what they'll do, and. But Terrell will have Njoku. I mean, they have a tight end. Cleveland has their threats. But the Steelers, they do have the versatility to move around, as you're suggesting. Minka could be a big factor. Miles Jack can blitz. Devin Bush can blitz. Cleveland center is injured. I believe their second string center is injured too. So, there are some options. But, boy, I tell you, it's such a bad spot for visiting teams on Thursday nights. Such a tough, it's not that hard of a trip to Cleveland. It's just a bus ride up the turnpike. But boy, the Steelers have done very poorly at Cleveland on Thursday nights. The one game, Ben, I forget the score. I don't think he scored. It might have been 14-3 final. Really cold. It was after beating the Ravens in a real emotional game. They went there and just played horrible and got beat. And then the famous Mason Rudolph getting hit with his own helmet game. That was 21-7. Steelers couldn't generate anything there either. That was a Thursday night game, probably after a Ravens game too. It's just a brutal spot. And here the Steelers were practicing today, no pads. It was total walk-on. And I couldn't blame Tomlin. You got to rest these bodies. Ben Roethlisberger was just saying on his podcast how oftentimes on Thursday, you still don't feel right. You're still maybe ready to take some practice off. Those veterans can get those days off. So playing a full speed, it's going to be difficult. Both teams are going to be motivated coming off losses. So they'll be both playing hard. It just seems to favor the home team for some reason.
Mm-hmm. And then looking at the rest of the season as a whole, we've seen the sort of start that the Ravens and the Browns have had. They both have gotten the win. The surprising team, obviously, the Bengals going 0-2 in their first 2 games, and not looking too great either. All that money spent on the offensive line hasn't seemed to help. Would you still be looking at, and then if we look at the AFC as well for the playoff picture, would you still be thinking that the winner of this division will go on to the playoffs. But do you think even second place will be enough to get one of those wild card spots with the strength of the rest of the AFC?
It's possible. I'd hate to, the Steelers have, there's so much new, and without TJ, I just look at these 6 weeks coming up as just a grind session where you're just hoping the line gets better. You're hoping Naji gets better. You're hoping a run game develops. And if the quarterback doesn't, then it's time for the rookie. That's a development. George Pickens is a new stud receiver. Calvin Austin is yet to appear. He's a 4.3 bullet. They need that kind of injection of speed. That's another process they'll have to go through. Finding another pass rusher, without TJ, they're going to have to find a way to get to the quarterback. So when TJ does come back, this defense will have gone through a new process and will have, just because they had to, they will get better. So I think they're being forced to get better on all fronts. And I'm not sure it'll be in time for this year, but I think this is all for the good. I think it's all working out for them, all how this is positioned, all how everybody has to learn. And we're all going to learn whether Canada is the right guy for this offensive coordinator's job. So maybe, that process grinds through, and that would leave a new process of a new offensive coordinator. But you would have Pickett. Maybe you bring back Mark Whipple, who coached Kenny Pickett at Pitt. He's at Nebraska now. Mark Whipple had pro concepts at Pitt in the passing game. That was a professional passing game at Pitt. He was Ben's first quarterback coach, of course. So, that would be there you go. There's your first rumor mill bit. Mark Whipple for offensive coordinator, because all that stuff's going to start if this offense doesn't magically improve. And I don't look for it to improve greatly. But I do believe that they're going to have to grind in the right spots, and that this team does have championship ability maybe next year. I know nobody wants to hear that. This year just started. I'm not so sure it can come together quickly enough this year. But, boy, they have some nice pieces. I think there's a nice foundation here.
Yeah. Well, look, Jim, I'm a Seahawks fan, and I know I'm already looking forward to next year. I have to. So it's a hard pill to swallow, but look, we'll see. We'll get those draft picks. We'll see what happens, and we can see next year. But look, listen, before we let you go, we should mention as well, of course, if anyone is interested in probably one of the most famous Steelers in Pittsburgh history, and that's Troy Polamalu, and you have his book available that you've written yourself.
Yeah, his biography, and it's been out since November of 2020. It was in time for his Hall of Fame, and I highly recommend it. I'm not saying it's a kid's book, but I believe strongly that this belongs in every 12-year-old's library going forward. It should be a foundation piece for Steelers fans, of course. Hey, all football fans. This guy's a great example, and it's not just a look at how good he was, because he was a good guy. But how he dealt with problems, how he overcame things. It's not so much that he prayed. It's how it all came together, his prayer, his meditation, and his film watching. Of course, his 4.3 speed helped. He just seemed to see it all. And all of those things went into it. And he wasn't the kind of guy that would come up to you and tell you to find Jesus Christ. If you wanted to ask about his spirituality, he would talk about it. But he wasn't in your face with it like some athletes are. And so I don't want you to be afraid that book's full of that kind of stuff, but he's a good guy, and nothing better for a kid than how a good guy did it. And he didn't have a great start. So, but I do have a new book coming out November 1st, On the Clock, The History of the Steelers Draft. A lot of cool stories about how these guys were drafted, all of their Hall of Famers. I go into detail, starting with Whizzer White back in the 30s. So, it's not all old. We go through the 70s. That was my most difficult chapter. And in the current time, I have all the contacts are still alive. I could talk to everybody about the drafts of late. So I think that's a really good book. It's coming out November 1st.
Excellent stuff, and definitely one for Steelers fans to pick up, especially now with the holiday season coming soon, and with with the history, of course, that the Rooney family have and the ties they have here to Ireland too. Definitely something for like the Irish Steeler contingent to definitely pick up this holiday season. Well, look, Jim, we've really appreciated the time. I know it's a short week and it's quite a busy week. I'm really thankful that you were able to take the time to speak to us. For anyone interested in reading some of the articles from the Steel City Insider, where can they find them?
Steel City Insider, you can dial it up, and it's a pay site. But the one article you referenced was free. There are we use a lot of free articles to give you a taste of how good we are. And then we have a lot of fans that pay the money to get insider access, and we're always there. And I think we do the best job. So thank you for promoting my work, and also thank you for having me on. It was fun. You do a good job.
Hi, thank you for watching this latest edition of the Under Center podcast. We really appreciate you taking the time to watch, listen, or even just follow us on social media. We appreciate all the support that we get, and hopefully we can continue to get your support throughout the NFL season. Before we do go, just want to let you know about a prediction league we're running in association with Fanzo. They are an app that we've partnered up with for this season to run a prediction league. All you need to do to take part of it is follow the instructions beside me here. You just download the app Fanzo, go to the NFL tipping game, put in a few details, your favorite team, then go to join a league, and all you need to do is put in the word center, CENTRE, to join the league. We're looking to get about 50 people involved if we can, so that we can get some great prizes at the end of this season for that. So like I said, download the Fanzo app, go to the NFL tipping game, put in some details, put in the code CENTRE, CENTRE, to join our league. Put in your predictions each week, and if you're at the top of the table at the end of the season, you could be in for a very, very good prize. But that is all from this edition of the show. Thank you very much, and until